Welcome to today's deep dive. I am super excited about this one because we are tackling something that affects, well, pretty much anyone who has to make a decision at work.
Which is literally everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to getting into this.
Totally. And the mission for today is actually pretty simple, though the answer isn't. We're going to explore why, in an era where we have more information, more data, and more AI-generated answers than ever before, making a good business decision actually feels harder.
Yeah, it's a massive paradox.
Right. Because usually when we talk about making a major business decision, there's this expectation of total precision. It's kind of like a GPS system.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
You plug in your destination, you load up the market data, run the AI analytics, and this calm, objective voice just tells you in 500 feet, turn left.
It feels incredibly calculated in theory, like you put the data in and the optimal strategy just gracefully pops out.
Exactly. But then you step into the actual lived reality of running a team or an organization today, and suddenly that GPS is just glitching out.
Just completely short-circuiting.
Yeah, it's screaming 10 different directions at once. Turn left, do a U-turn, watch out for the cliffs, recalculating. I mean, we are looking at a decision-making landscape that is practically deafening.
It really is.
So what does this all mean? Why is this happening? To answer that, we're pulling from a really insightful article by the management and creative agency Stella Pop. It's titled, "The Leader Who Can Finally Hear the Signal."
And it's a fascinating read because the assumption has always been that a lack of information was the primary bottleneck to good leadership.
Right. Like, if we just knew more, we'd do better.
Exactly. We believed that if we just had better intelligence right at our fingertips, leading a company would become completely frictionless. But the Stella Pop piece points out a profound shift.
A total 180.
Yeah. The ultimate competitive advantage right now isn't having the most data. It's the ability to quiet the noise.
And to figure out how to actually do that, we have to look at a completely different model of leadership, one that requires leaving the boardroom entirely.
Which is my favorite kind of business advice, honestly.
Same. We're going to look at the work of the late horse trainer Monty Roberts.
Yes, the man who listens to horses.
Right. Because I've always pictured traditional horse training as this really intense battle of wills. The rider demands compliance, applies pressure, the horse naturally bucks and resists, and eventually one of them just gives up.
That was the baseline reality for generations, actually.
Yeah.
The prevailing approach was entirely based on dominance and control.
Just totally confrontational.
Highly confrontational. A trainer would escalate force, face resistance, and then just apply even more force until the horse finally submitted to whoever was in charge.
Basically breaking its spirit.
Exactly. The entire goal was breaking the animal's will to get it to comply with a predetermined objective.
And when you think about it, old school corporate management operates on that exact same dominance model.
Oh, absolutely.
You have bosses applying pressure, pushing new KPIs, demanding longer hours. And when the team resists or starts burning out, the immediate reaction is just to apply more pressure.
More oversight, more micromanagement.
Right. You just keep squeezing until the team submits and hits the metric.
What's fascinating here is how deeply ingrained that dominance model still is in modern executives, despite being, fundamentally flawed.
It just doesn't work long term.
It doesn't. And Monty Roberts spent his life proving there was a much more effective mechanism for leadership. He spent years simply observing horses in pasture.
Just watching them.
Just watching, studying their movement, their fear responses, and how they built trust within a herd. And he realized that the horse is constantly communicating.
It's not just acting out randomly.
Not at all. It's signaling its limits, its fears, and its readiness through these really subtle shifts in behavior.
So they were already talking, the old school trainers just weren't fluent in the language, or honestly, they were probably just too busy shouting to listen.
Exactly. And the philosophy Roberts developed from this, which is known as the join-up method, is built entirely on recognizing those subtle signals rather than overpowering them.
It's about trust.
Yes. The trainer's primary function shifts from forcing submission to facilitating communication. Because overpowering signals with force is the exact opposite of what today's business leaders need to do.
Because it blinds you.
Right. When a leader tries to bend a market or a team to their will through sheer force, they completely blind themselves to what the business is actually trying to tell them.
Okay, so if listening is the key to getting a 1,000-pound animal to cooperate, it totally makes sense that it would work for a company.
Definitely.
But that brings us back to the glitching GPS, right? If listening is the answer, Why is it so incredibly difficult for a modern executive to just stop and listen to the business?
Well, the primary barrier is the sheer unadulterated volume of the modern executive's mind on, like, an average Tuesday.
So loud.
The cognitive load is staggering. Think
Yeah.
about the simultaneous processing required to run a company today.
I'm getting stressed just thinking about it.
Right. A leader is balancing revenue projections, cash flow realities, customer retention, employee satisfaction,
All at once.
all at once. They are trying to outsmart competitors while chasing new market opportunities, all while putting out random operational fires.
And that's just the big stuff. Then you add all the micro stresses.
Yeah, the microstress is the worst part.
Like the big proposal that hasn't been signed yet, the critical position that has been sitting open for 3 months, that expensive marketing campaign that just isn't converting.
Or the new software integration that the entire industry insists is, mandatory for survival.
Yes. Plus, you have the subtle interpersonal dynamics to worry about, like trying to decipher a slightly critical comment from a board member yesterday.
Or analyzing why a usually vocal manager was just completely silent in the morning stand-up.
Every single one of those data points is actively competing for attention in the exact same mental space.
And this is where we have to address the role of technology. Because AI and advanced analytics have exponentially increased the volume of that roar.
The noise just gets louder.
Way louder. We now have systems that can generate comprehensive strategies, risk analyses, and market forecasts in seconds. You scroll LinkedIn for 10 minutes and get 100 different expert opinions.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because I want to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
If I am that overloaded executive, right, dealing with all those micro stresses, shouldn't having AI and thousands of instant answers right in my pocket actually reduce the noise?
It's a fair question.
Like, if a machine can give me 5 perfectly modeled scenarios for my marketing campaign, shouldn't that make me a more relaxed leader?
It really seems like it should, but the mechanism of decision-making just doesn't work that way. Access to more answers actually multiplies the friction of choosing.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, when you use AI or scour the internet for solutions, you aren't handed one definitive path. You're handed 100 highly plausible, articulate strategies.
Oh, I see.
Technology has completely removed the friction of generating options, but it has drastically increased the cognitive load required to evaluate them.
So you end up paralyzed by a barrage of quote-unquote correct choices.
Exactly. The economic paradigm of leadership has essentially inverted. For decades, the scarce resource in business was information.
If you knew something the other guy didn't, you won.
Right. If you acquired the market data first, you won. Today, information is an infinite, cheap commodity. The scarce resource is attention.
Attention and distance, right?
Yes. It's the ability to create enough cognitive distance from the infinite options to understand which one actually matters for your specific context.
And that concept of creating distance is what Stella Pop refers to as quieting the mind.
Which is such a great phrase.
It is, but honestly, when I first hear a phrase like that in a business context, it sounds a bit like an invitation to a corporate wellness retreat where everyone does trust falls in the woods.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds a little woo-woo.
Yeah.
But it is critical to separate the concept from that kind of superficial wellness trend.
Yeah. It's not about sitting cross-legged and chanting.
No. Quieting the mind is not about meditation, and it's not an escape from responsibility. It is a rigorous, mechanical business discipline.
Mechanical, I like that.
It is the active process of forcing mental space to evaluate the business objectively, rather than just reacting to the loudest alarm bell.
It's having the discipline to stop asking, how do I fix this immediate fire? And start asking diagnostic questions.
Yes, like what is genuinely happening here?
What feels urgent versus what is actually a structural problem? Or what are metrics indicating when we look at the entire ecosystem instead of just staring at isolated spreadsheets?
It also involves filtering behavioral data. What are the employees communicating through their systemic bottlenecks? Or what realities has the leadership team accepted as normal simply because, well, it's been that way for years?
Which brings up the curse of institutional knowledge.
Oh, this is a huge hurdle.
Because there is this assumption that founders and veteran executives have a massive advantage simply because they know every single inch of the company's history.
And that intimate knowledge is definitely an asset during the building phase. But it eventually becomes a profound cognitive blinder.
It gets in the way.
Totally. Experienced leaders carry an enormous emotional and historical burden. When they look at a clunky, inefficient process, they don't just see a bad process.
They see the backstory.
Right. They remember the specific crisis from 4 years ago that required that process to be built in the first place. They remember the late nights, the panic, the stress.
They are constantly seeing the ghosts of the company's past.
That's a perfect way to put it.
They look at a convoluted org chart, and instead of seeing inefficiency, they see a series of agonizing compromises they had to make to keep key personnel from quitting.
And simultaneously, they are seeing the ghosts of the future.
Yeah.
Every possible disastrous scenario they've been losing sleep over.
That psychological weight makes it nearly impossible to distinguish history from necessity.
It really does. An executive struggles to ask, is this process strictly necessary for our future growth, or is it just history that we are dragging forward out of habit?
Because it's hard to be objective.
Exactly. And this is the exact mechanism that makes an outside perspective so incredibly valuable.
It's like trying to declutter a hoarder's house when you live in it.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. You have a deep sentimental attachment to every single broken item. You look at a busted desk chair and think, I can't throw that away. That's where I sat when we closed our first major client.
Justify keeping the junk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you bring in an outside friend who isn't burdened by that history. They walk in, look around with fresh eyes, point to a toaster sitting on the bathroom counter, and say, why is this here? This serves no function. Throw it out.
They just see a toaster in a bathroom. And the thing is, the outsider isn't necessarily smarter, and they don't know the industry better than the founder.
Their value is their ignorance, almost.
In a way, yeah. Their primary value is their lack of emotional baggage. They provide the strategic detachment that the leader has lost.
They aren't carrying the noise.
Precisely. An outsider or a leader who has successfully learned to simulate that detachment doesn't hear the deafening noise of past crises. They just see the toaster in the bathroom. They help the leader hear their own logic clearly again.
Okay, so once a leader actually does the rigorous work to quiet the noise and achieve that strategic detachment, what does the output actually look like?
In practice, you mean?
Yeah. How does this translate into tangible business innovation? And the Stella Pop article breaks down a fascinating case study regarding a project for a school photography client that illustrates this perfectly.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because the project began with a highly constrained routine assignment.
Super basic.
Right. The client just needed a new mechanism to deliver physical school photographs to families. Through a traditional, noisy executive lens, this is nothing more than a standard logistics and graphic design task.
The noisy mind just says, let's design a blue folder, maybe put the school mascot on the front, slide the photos in, print a receipt, and ship it. Task complete, move on to the next fire.
Exactly. Just check the box. But by applying the discipline of a quiet mind, the team created the distance necessary to ask a fundamentally different question.
They zoomed out.
They did. Instead of focusing immediately on the what, which was the physical folder, they analyzed the why. Why does this product even exist in the marketplace?
What is the actual function of a school photograph to the end consumer?
And not just the practical function, but the emotional and historical function.
Right. They realized a school photo isn't merely a piece of glossy paper. It is a highly specific timestamp of a human life.
A timestamp, exactly.
It documents what a child looked like in the 4th grade, but a static image fails to capture who that child actually was at that moment.
Because a photo doesn't tell you anything else.
Right. It doesn't capture their personality, their evolving aspirations, or their specific milestones from that 9-month period.
And that shift in perspective, that realization, is the mechanism of innovation. They didn't just redesign a folder. They completely re-engineered the product's entire value proposition.
They turned it into something else.
The delivery mechanism evolved into a memory capsule. The physical design was modified to include interactive spaces for the child to record their favorite things, what they wanted to be when they grew up, and their defining achievements of that school year.
And the compounding value of that over time is massive.
It's exponential.
If a family receives one of those every year, they aren't just hoarding a stack of photos in a forgotten drawer. They are curating an active documentary of a childhood.
Which changes everything.
Decades later, that capsule becomes a tangible family heirloom that can be shared with the next generation. It shifts the product from a disposable commodity to a permanent asset.
It's brilliant.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Because a skeptic might look at that case study and think, sure, that's a clever marketing pivot and it's nice graphic design, but how does this connect back to executive mental space?
Right. They might think, isn't this just the result of having a good creative team?
Exactly. Like, it's just good design work.
Yeah. But that distinction is the crux of the entire analysis. Executing the physical design. Choosing the typography, formatting the layout, sourcing the printing, that is all downstream work.
That's just execution of the idea.
Right. The massive competitive leap occurred long before any design software was ever opened. It required a leader to look at a deeply boring, routine industry standard that everyone else had accepted as a fixed reality.
The basic photo folder.
Yes. And they had to have the cognitive quietness to ask, what is the actual potential of this interaction?
Because you cannot ask existential questions about the multi-generational value of a product if your brain is consumed by a Tuesday morning panic over payroll.
Or a passive-aggressive email from a vendor. You just can't.
You're too stuck in the weeds.
You have to cultivate the capacity to see what isn't there yet. The noise of daily operations forces leaders to stare exclusively at what already exists.
Which kills innovation.
It totally does. Innovation requires staring at the negative space. You cannot identify the gaps where new value can be created when your processing power is just maxed out by the friction of the present moment.
But, and this is crucial, having a brilliant revelation about a memory capsule or recognizing the toaster in the bathroom, it's entirely useless if the realization stays trapped on a whiteboard in a conference room.
Oh, 100%. And this requires bringing the framework full circle. We established earlier that Monty Roberts fundamentally changed horse training by recognizing that the animal is constantly signaling its reality.
It's always communicating.
Always. Well, a business organization operates through the exact same mechanism.
Yeah.
The friction points are the signals.
Just like the horse bucking. The business is bucking, and it's using a very specific language.
Yes. Customer behavioral shifts. Those are signals. A sudden spike in employee turnover. That is a signal.
Or a slow, steady decline in profit margins on a flagship product.
Exactly. And absolute silence in a leadership meeting is actually one of the most critical signals.
Oh, that's interesting. Why?
Because it is routinely ignored. Leaders tend to fill uncomfortable voids with their own directives, rather than asking why no one is speaking up.
Ah, so they just talk louder over the silence.
Precisely. Or think about the founder who is habitually working until midnight just to maintain baseline operations. They often treat it as a badge of honor, but it's not.
It's a blaring structural alarm.
Yes. Or when customers start modifying your product to use it for a completely different purpose than it was engineered for.
That's a huge signal. And one that really stood out in the article is the chronically open job requisition.
Oh, the open rec. We've all seen this.
If a company has unsuccessfully tried to hire for the same position 3 consecutive times, or the people hired just keep failing, the reflex is almost always to blame the talent pool or the recruiters.
Naturally. It's the easiest excuse.
But that is the business signaling that the role itself is poorly constructed and incompatible with the reality of the workflow.
And when an executive actually achieves mental quietness, they stop treating these signals as isolated annoyances.
They stop playing whack-a-mole.
Exactly. They start identifying the structural patterns. They often discover that 10 separate acute crises are actually just symptoms of 2 underlying foundational cracks.
Because the loudest problem in the room is rarely the most important problem to solve.
So true. But, and this is the vital part, you recognize the signal, you identify the real problem, and you engineer a solution. But Stella Pop insists on a final non-negotiable rule for this process.
Execution.
Execution. Clarity and innovation possess 0 intrinsic value unless they dictate execution.
Insight without action is just an academic exercise.
It's just a fun thought experiment. A quiet mind allows you to see the path, but leadership requires actually walking it.
You have to take the step.
When a decision is made, it must be explicitly defined. The leader must assign clear ownership of the outcome and mandate the precise next steps. The cycle of leadership is only complete when the physical reality of the business actually changes.
Which is such a powerful takeaway. I want you, listening right now, to think about the friction points in your own day.
What is your horse bucking at?
Yeah, what is the equivalent in your operational reality of that position you've tried to hire for 3 times, or that recurring customer complaint you just keep applying a temporary patch to?
The organization is trying to communicate a structural flaw.
But the noise is preventing you from hearing the translation.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really requires a complete recalibration of how we define executive competence.
How so?
Well, in a world saturated with AI, where data analysis and strategic options are instantaneous and virtually free, hoarding information offers no strategic advantage anymore.
It's not a flex to have the most data.
Not at all. The defining characteristic of a successful modern leader is the disciplined ability to filter the infinite noise, locate the true signal, conceptualize a different reality, and then actually enforce the execution of that vision.
Quiet the mind, see the reality clearly, execute on what matters.
That's the formula.
We have covered incredible ground in this deep dive. We started with the realization that traditional force-based dominance models of leadership literally blind us to the signals our organizations are sending.
And we examined the staggering cognitive load of the modern executive mind.
The Tuesday morning mind.
Right. And how AI actually multiplies the friction of decision-making by providing infinite options.
Which means we have to actively create distance. We detailed the rigorous mechanism of quieting the mind, which is ultimately about escaping the curse of institutional knowledge.
Achieving that strategic detachment.
Exactly. And by looking at the school photo case study, we saw how asking fundamental questions about a product's purpose rather than just its design can create multi-generational value.
And finally, we locked in the reality that every friction point, from employee silence to a failed hiring process, is a signal demanding execution.
And this framework is universally applicable.
Completely universal.
Whether you are navigating the complexities of a Fortune 500 company, scaling a small startup, or just trying to architect the next phase of your personal career, the discipline of separating history from necessity is absolutely required.
Because the noise of the modern world is ubiquitous, right? Which makes the ability to systematically quiet it the most valuable skill in the marketplace.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on the idea of listening to unexpected signals. It was noted in the article that sometimes a business expense can be transformed into a valued experience.
Or a product's misuse is actually a roadmap for development.
Yes. So I challenge you. Look at the most frustrating recurring complaint your customers or your team members bring to you right now. You know, the one you are just sick of hearing about.
The one that makes you sigh when you see the email.
Exactly. What if that friction point isn't a problem you need to solve, but a blaring signal pointing toward an entirely new product or service you haven't realized you're already naturally providing?
The greatest competitive advantages are frequently disguised as operational headaches.
You just need the mental distance to recognize them. Remember that glitching GPS we talked about at the beginning?
Screaming 10 different directions.
Right. Modern business is no longer a clean, mathematically calculated route. The map is messy, the options are infinite, and the navigation system is screaming, but the true signal is always there, communicating exactly what needs to happen.
If you have the discipline to pull over, quiet the engine and listen.
Perfect note to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.